In the fourth video about my imaginary island, I outlined what people's clothing is like in general, and then said that while every village dresses a bit differently, I will not create that sort of detail, but I could figure out the differences between regions. Every village has somewhat different clothing, and two neighboring villages are going to be more similar to one another than the more distant ones. But it's easier to travel along the coast or up and down a river, while traveling through the forest is a real pain, sometimes literally so some neighboring communities are going to have more pull on one another than others. The generic tunic I have previously shown is the sort where you take a single piece of fabric, fold it in half, cut an opening for the head, and seam up the sides while leaving openings for the arms. But you can also take two narrower pieces of fabric, join them together while leaving an opening for the head, and then fold it all up in half and seam up the sides as before. Or you can take a smaller piece of fabric, fold it lengthwise to form the sleeves and the yoke, and then attach a larger piece of fabric that has been sewn to form a tube, and you have a complete tunic. Also, that larger piece of fabric can be pleated, and if you dye it with such pleating in mind, you can have different colors inside and outside the pleat, which I quite like. So let's say that the pleated tunic people live all along this river system, and also along this small neighboring river, and this tunic shape has also been adopted by these three neighboring villages, and has spread eastward along the coast. This tunic gets the eastern portion of the island, while this one gets the north. But there is more to regional variation of clothing than the shape of tunic one wears. People dye their clothing differently from village to village. Most of the pleated tunic area loves color red, but the inland portion of that area keeps the red stripe inside the pleat, and both groups like big flowers painted on the yoke and sleeves. But these 7 villages are different. They prefer their clothing yellow and brown, much like their eastern neighbors, who have a different tunic shape. Further up the eastern coast, people like their tunics yellow and white, painted with lots of red flowers, and these 2 villages dress like this, combining ideas from downriver and from the east. And in the northernmost villages of the eastern coast, people combine white with red and prefer yellow flowers. Their western neighbors keep their tunics entirely red and like yellow flowers as well. These 2 villages on the coast prefer their flowers small, while the 5 villages to the south dye their tunics brown. Further to the south, people keep their tunics mostly yellow, and these 2 villages don't wear the pleated tunic, but they still dye their clothing in stripes. I could go down to the village level from here on, but I'm no good at pattern making, and I don't want the inhabitants of this island to all be stuck wearing patterns that I had made for them. And regional variation is not the only type of variation there is, but there's only so much I can establish without coming up with a culture first, so I will leave tunics be for now.